The Atlanta Braves made a pair of moves on Monday to help improve the depth of the bullpen. We'll discuss those trades, and also I'll look at some of your mock trades leading up to this year's trade deadline. All of that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball. And make sure you check out my written work over at bravestoday.com, where I've basically been writing an article every day looking at potential trade partners for the Atlanta Braves. Didn't have either of the ones that the Braves made moves with on a Monday, but that's okay. So make sure that you check all my written work out over there at bravestoday.com. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up button as well in this video to help spread the love, spread the joy for these videos so that we get more interaction in the comment section, where you have been tremendous here lately, especially with all the trade talk going on. Been a lot of great discussion on the YouTube videos and on Twitter as well. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Want to give a shout out to some of the everydayers who let me know on the last video. You got E. Gonzalez, who says he's an everydayer 85% of the time, so I will allow it. Jackson Vaswell, Lion Man, Henry Moretz, Dave Roseman, Joey S., Carter Smith, good try. I saw what you tried to do. Chase Goddard, and Whit Dog. Thank you so much for letting me know that you are everydayers on the podcast. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. On today's podcast, we're really going to dive into the two trades that were made on Monday, one for Pierce Johnson, one for Taylor Hearn. We'll talk about the return. We'll talk about what the Braves gave up in those deals. And then I'm going to answer or respond to a lot of your mock trades that you sent me on Twitter. We did this last Tuesday as well, coming off the off day. So we're going to take a look at some of those mock trades that you submitted, and I'll tell you whether or not I think they make sense and if those deals could get done. And then we'll set you up for Tuesday's game against the Red Sox, where Charlie Morton will be on the mound. Let's start with the trades on Monday, though. Busy day, busy news day for the Atlanta Braves. First one was Pierce Johnson from the Colorado Rockies. The Braves traded Tanner Gordon and Victor Vodnik. Pierce Johnson, not necessarily somebody that was on my radar, somebody I had thought about and somebody I knew that was out there and perhaps made some sense, but not necessarily at the top of my selection of relievers that the Braves could have gone after. The price seems okay. Gordon and Vodnik. Gordon's somebody that I mentioned that I think could get dealt at the deadline in a smallish type of move like this. I think Vodnik is the one that maybe puts this deal over the top for me because I think Vodnik could ultimately be a pretty solid bullpen arm and has a lot of years of control, whereas Pierce Johnson is a rental player. I know there's a lot of back and forth about that. I was even confused at first and got bad information. He does not have 2 more years of control. Pierce Johnson is a rental player after this season. So you're giving up a Tanner Gordon, who's a 4th, 5th starter, I think, at best, and Victor Vodnik, who I think could be a solid setup guy if healthy and works on, gets the walks down. And that's what the Braves gave up for 2 months of Pierce Johnson. But let's dive into the trade a little bit more and talk about each player involved. First of all, Tanner Gordon, again, somebody I thought probably would be dealt. The Braves have a lot of back of rotation type guys in the organization right now, so they can afford to give up some of those guys. Tanner Gordon had a 5.86 ERA this year and a 1.36 WHIP in 86 innings between AA and AAA, with 76 strikeouts in those 86 innings. Have been much better at AA than AAA. 25-year-old righty, 6th round pick in 2019 out of Indiana. So like I said, not a huge loss there, and somebody that the Braves could deal in this situation, and somebody that, perhaps could be at the back of the rotation for the Rockies pretty soon, but somebody that really didn't have a path forward in the Braves organization. Vodnik's the big one here. 23-year-old righty, 14th round pick in 2018. Probably the best Braves reliever prospect going into the season. And he was having a pretty good year. A 3.10 ERA, a 1.25 WHIP, 56 strikeouts in 40 2/3 innings at Mississippi this year, 27 2/3 innings at AAA last year with a 2.93 ERA, but a 1.52 whip, 16 walks, and 33 strikeouts in those 27 2/3 innings. Always had big strikeout stuff. You got to see him a little bit in spring training. Unfortunately, didn't have the best spring training in the world, but he's always had big strikeout stuff, big potential to become a reliever, but a walk per nine over 5 the past 2 seasons. That and injuries and inconsistency has always been a problem for Victor Vodnik. I think it's interesting he never got called back up to AAA this year after pitching at AAA last year, especially with how fantastic he was in May and June, where he allowed just 2 earned runs in 24 1/3 innings with 36 strikeouts and 13 walks. However, in July, he had been a little more rough with 7 walks in 5 2/3 innings with just 2 earned runs and 8 strikeouts. One thing maybe to mention here, I don't know how big of a role it plays in this. The Southern League was using those tacked baseballs in the first half of the season. I don't know if maybe that was helping Vodnik a little bit or not, but in July they supposedly had gone away from those tacked baseballs, and you're seeing him struggle a little bit more. Again, I don't know how that plays into it. I think he has a chance to be a really good reliever if he puts it all together. I think it's very telling that Daysbel Hernandez just kind of blew past Victor Vodnik coming back from Tommy John surgery and is already at the big league level, and the Braves just stuck Victor Vodnik at AA all season long. I think that's telling with how the organization feels about him, and at the end of the day, doesn't really matter what I think about him, doesn't really matter what you think about him. It matters what the guys who are paid to do this think about him, and they clearly didn't think enough of Victor Vodnik to give him a chance when he was pitching so well at AA. So that tells me that they see something in his game that they don't think is going to work out and translate, or they just simply don't trust the inconsistency of his pitches at the big league level right now. What the Braves got back in return, Pierce Johnson, 43rd overall pick by the Cubs in 2012 in that sandwich round between the first and second. 32 years old, right-handed pitcher, flamed out after posting a 5.56 ERA and 1.374 whip with 36 strikeouts and 43 2/3 innings with the Giants back in 2018. The next year, he went to Japan and put up some unreal numbers, a 1.38 ERA, a 0.801 whip with 91 strikeouts in 58 2/3 innings. After that year, he signed with the Padres in 2020 and was really good in those first 2 seasons with the Padres. In 2022 with San Diego, however, he had a 5.02 ERA, but you look at his expected ERA, it was just 2.64, which would tell you perhaps a little bit of bad luck in 2022 with the Padres. He still had a strikeout rate of 32.8%, which is excellent. With the Rockies this offseason, they signed him for $5 million. He has a 6.00 ERA with a 3.11 ERA on the road and 3.8 in his home run to home run per 9, it goes from 2.20 in Coors Field to 1.19 on the road. So a 1 point difference in home run per 9 innings at Coors Field and on the road. Probably because his fly ball percentage is at 40.4% this year, and that's typically where it's been, except for last year. For whatever reason, it took a huge dip. But for the most part in his career, he's been around about a 40% fly ball pitcher. So obviously, those many fly balls pitching, most of your games in Coors Field, not going to be good for the ERA or for that home run total. So Braves are hoping getting him out of Coors Field, where he's been much better this year, will help him improve that ERA number. A curveball that he throws 49% of the time with a 40% whiff rate, a four-seam fastball that he throws 40% of the time, averaging 96 miles per hour with good spin rates, but hitters have a 667 slugging percentage against that pitch this year. Again, how much of that is due to the Coors effect? How much is that due to, maybe a flat fastball or just not locating it properly? That's what, we don't know. And the Braves are kind of hoping, again, getting away from Coors Field, that hopefully normalizes a little bit for him. He also throws a slider about 11% of the time. He really just started throwing that pitch this year, and it has a whiff rate over 30% as well. So 3 pitches, but 2 mainly, a big curveball that gets a lot of whiff rates and a high 90s fastball. So 2 really good pitches that are capable, of being a really good reliever. He is a rental Even though his service time would dictate he's still arbitration eligible, when he signed his contract coming back from Japan, it basically did away with all those service time commitments. A 13.3% walk rate, has had a walk rate over 11% in every season. That could be a little bit troubling and something you have to watch out for. Also, 7th percentile in average exit velocity and 1st percentile. That's not good. You want to be in the 100th percentile. He's in the 1st percentile in hard hit percentage this year. Again, how much of that is due to the Coors effect? Because that's way lower than any of his numbers in previous years. He's likely going to get a chance in the 6th, 7th inning role along with Jimenez and Yates once Minter is back, and most likely goes in that 8th inning role, perhaps depending on matchups and when some big lefties might be coming up. But I think he's going to get that, 6th, 7th, 8th inning kind of setup role along with some of those other guys. I mean, they traded for him as a rental player, gave up a pretty good reliever prospect in Victor Vodnik. They're really hoping that Pierce Johnson is going to be a big part of this bullpen in that setup type role. Now, the other move the Braves made on Monday was for Taylor Hearn. Just gave up cash considerations for him after the Rangers had designated him for assignment on July 19th. 28-year-old left-handed pitcher, drafted 4 times, which is interesting. Lastly, by the Nats in the 7th round in 2015. Over parts of 7 minor league seasons, a 3.61 ERA, 1.24 WHIP, 389 and a third innings pitched, 469 strikeouts. That's a 10.8 K per 9 and a 3.7 walk per 9 over parts of 5 major league seasons, a 5.65 ERA, a 1.45 WHIP, 229 innings pitched, just 219 strikeouts for an 8.6 K per 9 and 4.1 walk per 9. He's gone back and forth between a starter and a reliever. He's really more so now just started to focus on being a reliever, but the Rangers have used him in multi-inning stints, so he has that capability. My kind of hope with the Braves is that they just turn him into a lefty specialist, a dominant lefty specialist for a guy who has, upper 90s velocity of both a four-seam fastball and a sinker. I think, if they can do that, he has a good slider when he keeps it down, dropping just below the zone. I think if the Braves can kind of just rework his pitch selection a little bit, let him focus on being, a one-inning reliever, facing some tough lefties, I'm hoping that maybe that can turn him into a really solid and effective reliever. I've always liked Taylor Hearn. I mean, a big guy, a lefty, upper 90s, big stuff. He just hasn't been able to put it together before. It also helps he has options. He has one option left this year, which is big for the Braves, as they can move him back and forth if they need to. That's been one of their struggles this year with the bullpen, is that a lot of these guys just don't have options. So Taylor Hearn has that, and that's big for the Braves right now. Not sure if he's going to be on the active roster or not. Litke is gone, so they have no lefties currently on the roster. There is one open roster spot, even after they add Pierce Johnson and Yanni Chirinos. So we'll see. I'm sure they'll announce it sometime on Tuesday where Taylor Hearn is going to be going. But those are the 2 trades for Monday. Is there more to come? I don't think this is the last of the moves for the bullpen. AA likely just trying to get out ahead of things in case the prices of relievers skyrockets as the deadline gets closer. We saw him do this in 2021. He went out and got Jock Peterson about a week before the deadline and then made some more moves as the deadline approached. So I think it's probably that type of strategy. Go ahead and get a couple of guys in here, maybe get a look at them, see what they can do. And then, if things don't work out at the deadline, you've at least got a couple of pieces that you can mix in there. So I think it's that type of deal for Alex Anthopoulos here, where he's just trying to get out ahead of things in case things don't materialize, or prices for these relievers, which are going to be in high demand, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of great ones out there, kind of skyrocket on them and something's not able to get done at the deadline. So I still think there's more to come. They could make room on the roster. Hearn is somebody who could simply be DFA'd, if they find a better, left-handed option or just a better option in general. McHugh's someone that I think could get moved. He has a $6 million team option for next year with a $1 million buyout. I've said, I know some people in the YouTube comments disagree with me. I think he's the last man in the bullpen right now that I trust. I like Tonkin, but he's somebody I think you could DFA if you get a dominant type setup reliever. As much as I love Tonkin and what he's done, I don't know that you use him in the postseason. I don't know if he's in the postseason plans, because he's kind of that long reliever type bridge guy that comes in the 4th, 5th, 6th inning if you need to bridge the gap. I think the Braves could have several options like that might be better in a Soroka, maybe even a Kyle Wright situation. So I think talking to somebody else that could possibly go, even though I don't want that to happen, because I think he's done good work for the Braves this year. Jesse Chavez, another one as well that could bridge that gap and throw multiple innings. So I think there are more moves to come, but Alex Anthopoulos getting things started with a pair of moves on a Monday. Really like these moves. Again, I think they're low cost, low risk type of moves. I don't think Tanner Gordon's going to come back to bite you. Victor Vodnik is the only one that maybe if he turns in, he puts it all together, becomes a good reliever, but the Braves have had him for so long. He's been so inconsistent. I think there's maybe a little bit of fatigue there. But that's, I don't see the Braves getting overly killed by any of these moves. And I think they're guys that have some upside. You get them into Braves system, maybe rework a couple of things, and they can become some really big parts of this bullpen. And they're getting dominant, I don't want to say dominant, but they're getting some of those high velocity guys that we talked about, guys with upper 90s fastball that typically plays up in the postseason. So I like to see Alex Anthopoulos targeting those types of guys. All right, next, we got a lot of your mock trades to get to. You submitted a lot of them on Twitter. I'll discuss those here next. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful, and it's not when you use Gametime, which is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They have great deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, so you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting excited for all the fun you're going to have. I've used Gametime multiple times this year to go to Braves games, and it has been such an easy process. They show you a view of your seats before you purchase, which I absolutely love. They have flash sales right up to the last minute of each event, and I love that as well. It's a great feature, and you get that Gametime guarantee, which means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The Braves will begin a quick 2-game series in Boston on Tuesday at 7:10 p.m. Eastern. Could we see these two teams hook up in a trade? We got one of those we'll look at here in a second. Catch every pitch of the Braves hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. All right, big week on the podcast. We've got obviously the trade deadline coming up, so we'll be talking about trades every single day here on the podcast as we gear up for that trade deadline. So make sure that you are subscribed to Locked On Braves on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, I asked for some more mock trades since we had an off day on Monday. We got some more time here to dive into some of your mock trades. Austin Gwynn says, given tonight's report, which there was a report out there that the Braves have interest in Adam Duvall, Austin Gwynn says, I'll say Colin McHugh for Adam Duvall. Money is comparable. Boston would save some, and Red Sox need relief help from the right side. McHugh has another year of club control. I like this idea on the surface. I think if there were a trade to be made there, I think this makes a lot of sense, hopefully for both sides, depending on how Boston views Colin McHugh. I'm over Adam Duvall at this point. I mean, no disrespect to him. He's a great guy. I've always thought he's a little overrated for the Braves and by Braves fans. He's really good defensively in a corner, comes up with some big hits, has some big power. My question is he an upgrade over Kevin Pillar? And some of you may think that's a slam dunk yes answer. I don't know. I don't know that I would say that right now, at least with the way Kevin Pillar has played this year. Adam Duvall's had some reverse splits over the last couple of seasons where Pillar has mashed lefties consistently in his career. So if you're getting Adam Duvall to use in a platoon situation, I think you may already have a better platoon hitter against lefties in Kevin Pillar. And we've already seen what Kevin Pillar can do out there defensively and left as well. So if you're trading for Duvall, I think you're getting him in the idea of replacing Kevin Pillar. And I think it comes down to a question is who's better, Adam Duvall or Kevin Pillar? And again, that's certainly a debate that we can have and something we can look more into just on the surface. I don't know that that's a huge upgrade right there. And Adam Duvall over Kevin Pillar. I know Duvall had a hot start to the season. Again, he's somebody that can be extremely hot or extremely cold. There's really no in between. I just don't see the fit for Adam Duvall because I don't see it as a huge upgrade, if an upgrade at all, over Kevin Pillar. Truist Chop, who sent in several great mock trades, got some of them here. This one would be a huge one. It is Josh Hader and Juan Soto for Marcell Ozuna, not happening. Jared Schuster, AJ Smith-Shawver, Owen Murphy, Jesse Franklin, and Luis de Avila. I'm not convinced the Padres are going to sell. First of all, we talked about that a lot here lately when we discussed, possible move for Josh Hader. Josh Hader's a rental player. You're getting 2 months of him. Juan Soto, you're getting, a year and 2 months of him. So again, you're not getting a lot of length out of these guys if you're trading for them. Obviously, they are both huge players and could help put the Braves over the top of an already ridiculously talented team. Ozuna would help kind of offset some of the money, I guess, but I don't see the Padres really being willing to do that with another big year on Ozuna's contract. Giving up AJ Smith-Shawver, Owen Murphy, you're giving up 2 of your best prospects in the system. I still don't think that's enough for the Padres to really pull the trigger on that. I mean, Jared Schuster's the back of the rotation guy. Jesse Franklin's a platoon guy, corner outfielder off the bench. Luis de Avila, don't really know what the upside is for him. Maybe mid-rotation starter at best. I still don't know if that's enough from the Padres. And I think from a Braves perspective, you could probably say that's too much to give up when you're only getting, like I said, 2 months of Josh Hader and a year and 2 months of Juan Soto. Bottom line is that deal's not happening, and I don't know that the Padres are sellers at this point. Caleb Hudgens, Vaughn Grissom, and Spencer Schwellenbach to the Cubs for Marcus Stroman and Cody Bellinger. This seems like too much for me. Again, I've said I'm not trading Vaughn Grissom unless I'm getting some controllable assets. Marcus Stroman could be. He could opt out after the season, and with the year he's having, I would imagine he does. And so you're getting 2 months of Marcus Stroman, and you're getting 2 months of Cody Bellinger. And I talked about Cody Bellinger last week when we went over mock trades. His metrics say that there's a huge regression coming for Cody Bellinger at some point. And I don't know that he's that big of an upgrade over Rosario. Again, when you're talking about players you're bringing in, you got to think about who they're replacing and how much of an upgrade is that. And again, we discussed the Rosario versus Bellinger debate last year. I think it's one that can be had. I think Bellinger probably is an upgrade, especially defensively. I think they're pretty even offensively when you look at the expected metrics of each of them. I like what Cavs Buckeye says. He says, Bellinger price will be way too high given the peripherals. Do not do it. And that's kind of where I am with Cody Bellinger. I've never liked the swing. I think what we're seeing right now is a little bit faulty, especially, again, when you look at the metrics that he's putting up. And again, for me to give up Vaughn Grissom and Spencer Schwellenbach for 2 guys who could be rental players, that's way too high of a price for me. Truist Chop also says, Braves get Will Benson, outfielder from the Reds, and the Reds get Jared Schuster and Vaughn Grissom. Somebody else mentioned Benson to me the other day. I think it was outside of the podcast. I'm not sure what the need for the Reds is. I think they have plenty of infielders, so I don't see Vaughn Grissom being a fit for them. I think that package could be okay. I just don't think the Reds necessarily have a need for Grissom. I said this, and again, I don't think it was on the podcast. I think it was offline, either on the YouTube comments or on Twitter. I think, if you did a swap of Owen Murphy and J.R. Ritchie for a Will Benson, maybe give the Reds another solid pitching prospect. Again, I don't necessarily know the need for the Reds, but I do know they're fine across the infield. They're even looking to trade Jonathan India at this point, which, if he could play left field, might not be a terrible option for the Braves. But I think there could be a fit there for Will Benson. But I don't think that package gets it done. I think maybe you just do a straight up swap with one of the Braves' top pitching prospects. Brad says Braves get Ryan Helsley, Cards get Vines, Schuster, and Luke Waddell. Helsley has 2 more years of control, hasn't pitched since June 7th. He's currently on the 60-day IL, so Braves would be banking on him coming back healthy at the end of the year, playing a big role in the bullpen, which isn't unheard of. They traded for Eddie Rosario in 2021, banking on him coming back healthy. Helsley's been really good when he's healthy at 39.3% K rate last year. That package probably isn't enough when you consider how good Helsley's been when healthy and the fact he has 2 more years of control. I think the Braves would probably have to give up, again, probably one of your better pitching prospects and an AJ Smith-Shawver, Owen Murphy, J.R. Ritchie, somebody like that, and then throw in, maybe a Jared Schuster or a Dylan Dodd. So I don't think that package is enough. I like the idea of that. Also don't know that Helsley is necessarily available from the Cardinals, but I like that thinking as somebody who's injured, but when he comes back, if he comes back, fully healthy, could be, a big piece in the bullpen. Cade Harrington, Vaughn Grissom, and everybody trying to trade Vaughn Grissom right now is killing me. Vaughn Grissom and Bryce Elder for Alex Lange and Justin Henry Malloy. Justin Henry Malloy doesn't fit the Braves model, which I think is why he was traded in the first place for a rental in Joe Jimenez, a trade I still don't understand, but he just doesn't fit the Braves model. He's an on-base guy, not a lot of slug, doesn't really have a position. And in my mind, I look at this deal and you're giving up Vaughn Grissom and a guy who's high on-base guy who doesn't hit for a lot of power and doesn't have a position, and you're trading for a guy in Justin Henry Malloy who is a high on-base guy, not a lot of slug, who doesn't have a position. So to me, you're trading one guy for another guy that they're essentially the same. Both can hit, both can get on base. Neither one of them have a true defensive home. And then you're trading a controllable third or fourth starter in Bryce Elder for a setup reliever. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense for the Braves. I like Alex Lange. I think he's a good option, trade option to get, but I just don't think that deal makes a ton of sense in my mind. And then Chase Goddard on YouTube had a blockbuster deal. He says Jared Schuster, Vaughn Grissom, Dylan Dodd, and Cal Conley, and Jesse Franklin for Giolito, Kelly, and Graveman. I actually don't think this is the worst package in the world. Hard to see that big of a deal getting done. Giolito is a rental. I think Kelly has a team option for next year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about the contract status of Kendall Graveman, but I don't think that's the worst package in the world. You're giving up, a back of the rotation starter. Grissom's probably the key in that one. They would be getting, maybe somebody to replace Tim Anderson, Dylan Dodd, another back of the rotation starter, and Cal Conley. Now that I look at it, because you're getting so many rental type players, that may be too much for me. I mean, you're giving up two guys in Schuster and Dodd who I think could still be solid back of the rotation starters, and Grissom, who, I think highly of, and somebody I've said in the past I wouldn't trade unless I'm getting a controllable asset. So even that price might be a little too high for me. Conley and Franklin are just whatever. They're kind of throw-ins in this deal for me. I think maybe if you take out Grissom in that deal, I think it makes a lot more sense for the Braves. But, I like the idea of getting Giolito, kind of shoring up the rotation. Joe Kelly, arm that we've talked about a lot for the bullpen, and Graveman as well, which would also be another big asset for the bullpen. So I like those guys, and I like that deal. Again, I'd probably take Grissom out of that, but at that point, I don't know if the White Sox do it. Thank you so much for submitting your mock trades. Hopefully we'll be able to do another couple of these before the trade deadline, but thank you so much for submitting those. All right, next we'll set you up for Tuesday's game where the Braves will be taking on the Boston Red Sox. Charlie Morton on the mound. We'll discuss that next. Should be a little bit of roster news coming for the Braves on Tuesday. We'll see what they're going to do. Obviously, they've taken Michael Soroka off the active roster. They've taken off Alan Winans. They do have the 2 off days this week, so we'll see how the pitching rotation is going to shake out. So be looking for that on Tuesday. Maybe there'll be some more trades. We'll see. It is that time of year, so be on the lookout for that. Something will probably happen the moment after I post this video, like what happened on Monday. But on Tuesday night, it'll be the Braves and Red Sox. Quick 2-game series here up in Boston. Charlie Morton on the mound for the Braves. Still not sure who's going to be on the mound for the Red Sox, but Red Sox a good team. They're on the hunt right now. They're kind of on the border there of do they buy, do they sell? So it'll be interesting to see what they do at the deadline. But Braves are going to be throwing Morton and Strider in this series. So hopefully this is a quick 2-game series that the Braves can sweep and kind of get going with their 2 horses on the mound. You really want to see that with Morton. An okay outing last time, did give up 4 runs, but overall I thought he was pretty solid. Hopefully he continues the trend he's been on here lately, especially before this last outing. He was looking really good. So I want to see more of that from Charlie Morton. A lot of you have been asking me, what would my postseason rotation look like? I still have Charlie Morton as the number 3 behind a healthy Max Fried and Spencer Strider because of the dominant stuff that Morton possesses. So again, hopefully he continues to show that on Tuesday night and the Braves can pick up a victory. The Braves will begin that quick 2-game series with the Boston Red Sox on Tuesday at 7:10 p.m. Eastern. Charlie Morton will take the mound for the Bravos. Catch every pitch of the Braves hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. That will do it for this episode of the Locked On Braves. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of each and every day. If you're an everydayer, let me know down in the comments section below. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. You can follow me at ShortstopBall. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.